my big sister, she had to help me out because there was the neighborhood bully and she was right there and she's telling these stories and you're listening. That right there is giving them life. That is something that is invigorating them. And so by us encouraging those conversations, not only is it giving them life and sharpening their memories, it's actually helping you as a young person as well. And this is something that we need to continue to encourage in our families. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Miss Sasha. And with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation, as to why we have these high levels of illiteracy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together, y'all. Welcome again to another episode. I thank you all for joining me. I appreciate my old heads, my OGs for rocking with me from day one. And I appreciate my newbies. Thank you for joining me as well. I hope that not only are you getting the education that you need, the tools and resources, I hope you're also enjoying this episode and this information. So I'm about to get right on into it. So what I want to talk about is how we can actually help to incorporate literacy within our families with something as simple as enjoying family gatherings in the summertime. So, as we all know, during the summer, those are the times within our Black communities, we get together with our families for family reunions, whether it is the family picnic outside or we are going to visit relatives. You still have folks who may take those trips down south, because that is something in the Black community that has been done for decades, right? So you would have some of the parents, they may send their children down south to stay with the grandparents or the aunts and the uncles. So a lot of the traveling, a lot of communication, and a lot of that connection with your family happens typically in the summer, because as we know, these are the times when the kids are out of school. And of course, as us as adults, we are always working, right? Whether you are working for someone or you have your own business, you tend to still be working in the summer, okay? However, it still seems like it's a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more, time, free time where you can gather with your family. Well, guess what? Those are the times, especially when you have your elders who are still present. So if you got your grandmas or your great grandmas, grandpas, great grandpas, aunts and uncles, elder cousins, all right, these are the moments that we should be encouraging our young people to be in conversation with our elders in the family. Okay? Because let's just face it, especially since I would even say before COVID, we have been battling the issue of social media, battling the issue of just being on our devices and being disconnected. And as we know, when we have those connections, the strength and connections and being with your family and community, it just builds you it builds you up in a good way, emotionally, mentally, and of course, not just for that young person, for that elder. I mean, it's research that shows that when you have an elderly person who is around younger people, it actually helps them to be able to age in a way with dignity and grace. And it actually helps to elongate their lives because they are being able to continue to talk about their experiences. It's actually sharpening their memories. So when you're asking them questions, and then they're able to talk about, well, yes, I remember when this happened. And I remember when, my big sister, she had to help me out because there was the neighborhood bully and she was right there and she's telling these stories and you're listening. That right there is giving them life. that is something that is invigorating them. And so by us encouraging those conversations, not only is it giving them life and sharpening their memories, it's actually helping you as a young person as well. And this is something that we need to continue to encourage in our families. And so, what made me want to talk about this particular topic is we just finished up on my dad's side of the family, which we were, having, we have these annual picnics, right? So, in this year, and as we know, a lot of times in families, we take turns having them in different cities. So, you have different families from that city, and they host that particular event. So, we had it here in Cleveland. And so we hosted the particular event. And this one particular story was just so, oh my goodness, it was so funny. But it also just showed me the resilience, and it showed me the strength and the boldness of people in my family. So my great aunt, she told the story about her biting the head off of a snake. And I was just like, and I recorded it, and I even got permission. I asked her daughter, which is my cousin. I said, can you ask my aunt? Can I post her talking about her biting the head off of the snake? And so she was like, yes, no problem. And I was just like, wow, man. And me just sitting there listening to her and watching her tell that story, me as a 50-year-old woman about to be 51, inshallah, that gave me even more confidence. It gave me insight into my history in terms of, okay, you know what? Oh, she talked about how, for example, she talked about her wanting to play with the boys, and she was a tomboy. And I literally, I took it back to my life. I said, shoot, that was me. I remember, wanting to run around, I'm running with the boys and doing all these quote unquote tomboy things, climbing trees with a sundress on, riding my bike, just racing, all of these different things. And I said, wow. I said, look at that. And here it is. My great aunt was talking about that, and how, she was proving her boldness when these little boys in the neighborhood called themselves trying to scare her. And they put this snake around this stick, and they all like, doing all this. And she's talking about this, right? And it was like literally she can envision herself back during that time. And so she's just talking about it. And then she said she did something that was bold and scary to them, because it wasn't for her, because she was just like, I'm about to show them that I'm tough. And they call themselves trying to wave it in her face. She said she took that dang on snake, and she said she bit the head off of it. I said, dang. Now, I ain't never want to do nothing like that as a kid. However, to hear her talk about that, and just how she was just showing that, yeah, I wanted to do something crazy enough to prove to them that, oh, yes, I can get out, I can have fun, and I can do these daring things. And yes, I'm a girl doing it. So, with that being said, I wanted to share with you all the 5 benefits that we gain from having those conversations with our elders in our communities. All right. So the first one, again, number one, it builds a connection to our elders, right? So having that intergenerational connection. So just like I explained, right here it is, my great aunt, shout out to my great aunt Joyce, and her talking about this story. And what was so cool is that you had all ages in the audience. So you had the little baby who's there, the little babies, you had your toddlers, then you had your elementary, adolescents, all the way up to those who are in her age group and older, right? So again, you had everybody in that space listening to that story. All eyes on her being able to tell that story. She wasn't the only one telling stories, by the way, but that story was very intriguing to me on a personal level. And I was just like, I said, wow, we don't understand how this right here, this is a form of literacy. This is building the foundation of literacy when we are listening to those oral traditions. Because remember, that takes us back to our African oral traditions, the storytelling. I know we used to hearing the word griot, which, by the way, I learned from Dr. Greg Carr. That's a French word. Okay, that was something that the French had termed our African ancestors telling stories. But the African term for that actually is jolly. Okay, so you have a jolly, which, how he explained, is someone who tells the story. But one of the keys to what a jolly must have is they have the responsibility of, when they're telling their stories, we're relying upon their good memories. So you have to be somebody who has a great memory, and somebody who has the responsibility of passing down those particular stories. All right. So a jolly has a very important role. And that's something that that word, I like that better because, again, that's an African term. All right. But with that being said, just to drive the point home, someone who's telling the story. Okay. And right there is building that connection. You're having that intergenerational connection occur in your family. All right. So that's the first benefit. The second one, it, of course, obviously building those listening skills and comprehension skills. So when you are listening to someone talk about something, that right there is helping you be able to sharpen your attention skills, your listening skills, which is something that we need to do more of. A lot of times, you will have folks who think that, well, you know what, the most important person in the room is the one who's doing all the talking. They're doing the speaking, they're giving these speeches or whatever. But in actuality, when you have that person who's able to not only listen, but then they're able to walk away understanding those particular stories, that right there is extremely important. And of course, speaking is very important too. Yes, you definitely, which is going to be one of the benefits that I'm going to talk about later on. But the listening component, that right there is actually the foundation of reading. And I've talked about that plenty of times on my podcast. I talked about how listening, that's the first way in which a child learns how to read. That's why the research, again, shows that we should be reading consistently and talking to those babies when they are in utero, when they are in the womb, because they can hear. And then when they are born, then it's actually, the research shows that they will be more likely to become a successful reader because they were accustomed to hearing that spoken word. All right. So they're hearing the sounds, they're hearing the words being pronounced, all of that. And then we're constantly having conversation. Okay. All of that is literacy. So we don't want to just always think literacy is somebody's opening a book and they're actually reading words. You're actually able to demonstrate your comprehension of what it is that you were listening to and what you're reading. All right. Number 3, preserves cultural literacy and identity. All right. Just like I'm using, building off the example that I gave of my aunt telling the story. And again, all the other elders in the room who were telling their stories. That is preservation of our family tradition. And I love how my one aunt, this is my dad's sister, she talked about, I love how when she came in and she stood up and she said, hey, look, I need for our young people to know who your aunt is, who your uncle is, who your cousin is. Because even though you may have family members there gathering, there are a lot of times where the young people in particular, they won't know who is who. They'll be calling somebody aunt this or uncle that. But then when they find out, when they get to know them, they're like, oh, wait a minute, okay, that's not my aunt, that's actually my cousin. That's actually my second cousin, or that's my older cousin, or whatever the case may be. And these are things that are very important. And it's fine because we understand you may have some communities where you may call somebody an aunt out of respect, even though that is your cousin, but because they are that much older than you, out of respect, you may refer to them as aunt this or uncle that. However, it is still good to know who's related to who. And how are we going to know that if we are not having conversation, we're not in community, we're not listening, we're not actually hearing their stories, and also them able to hear your stories, or maybe you want to be able to, there may be a particular family member that you might wind up gravitating to. You might wind up seeing that y'all have a connection, just like I give a shout out to my Aunt Ethel. I found out she was telling me that she was teaching for about 6 or 7 years. And I was just like, I didn't know that. Right. And here it is. I'm in the education space and I'm a reading tutor. And then she talked about how she loves to read, an avid reader. Again, how would I have known that? Well, I found that out because I'm having a conversation with her in community. So again, that third piece, I really, really love that piece. All right. That preservation of cultural literacy and identity. Number 4, it boosts a child's storytelling skills. So here it is. You may have that child who they may feel a little reluctant about speaking. They may not know how to speak in front of others. And I'm going to tell y'all, that is a life skill. Even though you may not, want to be some type of motivational speaker or somebody who's, talking in front of groups, guess what? Your child should know how to be able to demonstrate that skill of public speaking. Because I'm going to tell you, they're going to be there are going to be times where, say, hypothetically, they may have to talk about a particular cause that they are rooting for something, right? And they want to get people to be on their side in terms of maybe they're fighting for homelessness, right? And maybe they might wind up working for a nonprofit organization, or they may create their own organization. It may not be nonprofit, but they are creating something to where they need the assistance from other people to help with their particular cause. Well, the way in which to get people to really buy in to your cause is you have to be a great storyteller. You have to be able to paint the picture. And, even though you might have folks who are fearful of telling those stories, that's still a life skill. And that is something that you still have to know, just like we're learning how to drive, just like we're learning how to swim. Okay, these are life skills. And a great way for our child to be able to, or our children to be able to learn those storytelling skills, listening to those elders. And in fact, I'm going to end with this piece on that, and I'm going to go into the last one. One of the keys, though, that I've learned, and I just think about myself on a personal level, is when you are just literally your authentic self, you are relaxed, and then you are in an environment where people are supportive of you. That's why it's very important when you are with family that you have a healthy family dynamic. You don't want to, you want to make sure that you get into, that we are into trying to heal from our different issues that we have in our families. Because that, and all of this ties into what I'm saying, because when you are with your family, those are the times in which you should be able to be vulnerable, be transparent. And you're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to want to speak in front of people, even if this is your blood, if you feel some type of, maybe you may feel nervous because maybe some of the people in your family, they don't welcome you for whatever reason. Okay. And I'm not talking about somebody who's doing something who was known for just like, they was just doing some crazy stuff. So I'm that's off the table. I'm just talking about you may have had simple interactions with family members where, maybe y'all didn't get along at one time. Maybe y'all was beefing or whatever at one time, or whatever the case may be. Y'all personalities didn't click, because that happens in families, right? We didn't ask for our families. And you could be born in a family, and then there are people in the family where y'all don't get along. But guess what? When we still are having the attitude of, guess what? You matter. Your voice matters. We want to hear what you have to say. That right there is going to help that child even more be able to build that confidence that they need to speak. And in order to have that confidence, they have to be able to feel comfortable and relaxed. And again, these are things that we can do. And our elders, I truly believe a lot of our elders in our family, they are very good at that because they understand, they've been there. And that's why it's important to be in community with our elders. All right. And then the last one, it teaches life's lessons. problem solving skills, understanding, and cause and effect. All right. So just like I talked about, right? Here it is. You have my aunt. She's given the story about how she bit the head off the snake. And what she was driving home, her point, again, like she talked about, I ain't afraid. I can play with y'all. I know y'all thought that since I was a girl and y'all are boys and y'all were more bold than me. Y'all got, you all can do more daring things than me. And she was showing that no, gender did not matter. You know, God put courage in all of us. And so she was showing with that particular lesson that she got that courage, obviously, from being raised in a family that gave her that courage, that gave her that strength to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to do something wild, bold, and crazy to show y'all what time it is. Okay. And so being able to learn about those particular life's lessons, having our children understand that, okay, always remember in life, whatever things that you do, there are going to be consequences to that. And you want to make sure that you are doing everything that you can to have a lot of good consequences and good effects occur. All right. So again, all of these things, these 5 things that I talked about, these are the benefits of being able to have these connections in talking to our elders in the family, and how these 5 things right here, and these are just 5 of the things that I came up with. There are plenty other benefits as well, but these are just the 5 foundational things that I thought were very crucial as it pertains to us being able to build a foundation in literacy within our families. All right. So I hope this was helpful. And I hope that you guys now are going to be a little bit more intentional when you are gathering with your families, family reunions, or you got, some people who say Mima or Nana or Muddy or Pop or Papa or Grandpa. When you go into these different events, and whether it's their birthdays or it's somebody's graduation or, again, family reunions or whatever the case may be intentional about talking to your elders. All right. Make sure that you encourage your young people, encourage those children to talk to those elders. And of course, one little key, I'll say a bonus to that too, it's actually also showing them respect and love, right? Showing them that, yes, we still see you. You are here. You are the foundation. You are the bedrock of our families. We're standing on your shoulders. And we have to make sure that we are showing them that respect and that honor. And again, these are just some great tools. I truly believe that it's going to be helpful as it pertains to us helping to eradicate this high levels of literacy that has been plaguing our Black communities, brown communities, underserved communities for decades. All right. So I thank you all again for listening, tuning in to another episode of Real Reading Talk. I am your most gracious host, Ms. Sasha. And with Real Reading Talk, I discuss the real systemic issues that are at the very core, the very foundation, as to why we have high levels of illiteracy in the Black community and the ways in which we can combat these issues together, y'all. All right, y'all. Take care. Reading is freedom. Peace. All right, everybody. I hope once again that you got benefit from that particular episode, and you make sure that you do everything that you can to be intentional about incorporating literacy and developing that culture of literacy within your families. So now it's time for some housekeeping. And I just want to remind you guys that I am a pre-K through 4th grade reading tutor, and I'm an Orton-Gillingham certified dyslexia tutor. So if you are in need of that reading assistance for your child, please go to my website, abclearntutoring.com, and click on that free reading assessment today. I'm also the founder and executive director of ABC Read, and our mission is to develop and nurture a culture of literacy in Black and underserved communities. And we've been doing this over a decade, y'all, giving over 8,000 books, having phenomenal reading experiences, literacy workshops, book clubs. Okay, we're going to be starting a book club for our youth very soon as well. So we doing a damn thing as it pertains to literacy. All right, go to our website, abcread.org, and you can see what we've been doing. And we would love for you to donate to help our organization continue to do the work here in the city of Cleveland. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Reading is Freedom. Make sure you like, comment, share, hit the notification bell, because the comments, that right there is very helpful. And then it gives me insight into, different things that maybe is some topics that you want me to dive into. So I love that feedback. All right. Or you just giving props like, hey girl, what's up? What's up? I appreciate what you're doing. Just make sure you comment. All right. And also, the merch, gotta talk about Reading is Freedom, the brand. Okay, Reading is Freedom. This is one of the merch that you can get. Folks have been loving it. They've been seeing it. And they're like, hey, where can I get that? I'm like, go to my website, readingisfreedomshop.com. readingisfreedomshop.com. And I always put these links in the description. So, because I don't expect nobody to remember this stuff. You just got to go to the description and you click the link to everything that I'm putting. And last but certainly not least, bam! Yes, your girl is an author, y'all. That's right. Healed, empowered, resilient. I'm a co-author with 9 other remarkable, beautiful women from different walks of life, sharing our stories about how we've turned our trials and tribulations into triumphs. And we want to be able to help you. All right. Go to Amazon, grab your copy. Right now, Healed, Empowered, Resilient, okay? And I just want to end with this. The book that I just finished reading was The Battle for the Black Mind by Dr. Corita L. Brown. So that is a book I recommend. Also, this book I've started perusing through this book here. 100 Years of Lynching by Ralph Ginsberg, all right? This book came highly recommended, so I said, let me go ahead and grab that book, and I'm going to recommend that to you all as well. All right, y'all. That's it. That's what I got for you all, and I hope you all continue to please keep reading for at least 30 minutes a day. Again, this was another episode of Real Reading Talk, and I am your most gracious host, Miss Sasha. All right? And remember, reading is freedom. Peace.